Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Boxiest, and today we're going to continue the What If series. What if events had gone differently? And in this What If, we're going to change the history of Cobra Kai. What if Hawk was focused during the events of Cobra Kai Season 6? So in this timeline, the events of Cobra Kai Season 6 would still happen. The Sekai Taikai would still be revealed to take place in Barcelona. So Daniel and Johnny would still have to pick 6 fighters to compete in the Sekai Taikai, and they would still have a hard time deciding on who would go. So much like in the original timeline, Daniel would still bring in Mike Barnes, and Mike would still do a series of challenges to determine the top students, and those challenges would carry on. In this timeline, Hawk would do a lot better during the challenges, and he would get more flags during the first flag challenge in this timeline, so Hawk would make the top 5, and Mike would still have to decide the remaining spot in Miyamoto's team. Those events would continue, and much like in the original timeline, Johnny would still go talk to Mike, and those events would stay the same. And the next day, Mike would still say that the last 3 were too close to call, so he would still have Devin, Kenny, and Dimitri race to get the last flag, so the challenge would begin. And Devin would still put laxatives in Kenny's water, so Kenny would still be out. Devin would arrive first, and she would find the final flag. Well, this is when Dimitri would show up, and he would want to take the flag from Devin, so Devin and Dimitri would fight over the flag, and in this timeline, Dimitri would defeat Devin, so Dimitri would be the final member on the Miyamoto team, and those events would carry on. Season 6 would continue. Carice would still want to talk to Tori, but Tori still wouldn't want anything to do with Carice. Tori's mom would still pass away, and Season 6 would carry on. Johnny and Daniel would still want Miguel and Robbie to compete for captain, so Miguel and Robbie would still fight. Robbie would still be balanced in this timeline, and he would still defeat Miguel, so Robbie would still be the boys' captain. Sam and Tori would still fight, and Tori would still be fighting with anger. Amanda and Danny would still stop the fight, and much like in the original timeline, Tori would still quit Miyagi-Do, and she would still leave. So in this timeline, Sam would be the girls' Miyagi-Do captain, and Daniel and Johnny want Devin to take her place. Miyagi-Do would still make it to the Sekai Taikai, and they would be surprised to see Carice and Cobra Kai there, and they would be heartbroken to see Tori and Cobra Kai. The Sekai Taikai would continue. Robbie would still want to talk to Tori, but Tori still wouldn't want to talk to the Miyagi-Dos. Quan would still be challenging the other dojos to a kicking competition, and Robbie would still accept Quan's challenge, so those events would stay the same. Eventually the Captain's War Challenge would begin. Miyagi-Do would be on defense, and they would still be doing Protect the Egg, but Tori and Quan would still want to go after the Miyagi-Dos. Quan would still go after Robbie, and Robbie and Quan would still fight. Robbie would still be distracted by Tori, so Quan would still take Robbie down, and Miyagi-Do would be out, so only the Cobra Kais and the Iron Dragons would remain. The rest of the Iron Dragons would still walk off, and Zara and Axel would be left to fight the Cobra Kais. Zara and Axel will still take down Quan and Tori, so the Iron Dragons would win. The Sekai Taikai would continue. Miyagi-Do would still have to knock the other dojo off the platform, but Miyagi-Do wouldn't do so well. Miyagi-Do would still have to fight out Dublin Thunder. Robbie and Sam would still start off, and they would fight their opponents, but Robbie would still be distracted by Tori, so he would still be knocked off. So Devin would join Sam on the platform. Devin and Sam would still fight their opponents. The fight would continue, and Sam would still be knocked off. So Hawk would join Devin, and much like in the original timeline, Devin would still sacrifice herself to save Hawk, so Dimitri would join Hawk on the platform. Hawk and Dimitri would still fight their opponents, and neither of them would be knocked off, so Miyagi-Do would win. And much like in the original timeline, Carmen would still be rushed to the hospital, and Johnny and Miguel would have to leave. The Miyagi-Do students would still go explore Barcelona, and they would still be at the tapas bar. This is when the Cobra Kais would show up, and Sam would still go outside to get some air. Quan would still want to mess with Robbie, so Quan and Robbie would start to have a rivalry. Sam would still be walking down the beach, and she would still run into Axel. She would still compliment Axel on his kata, and the interaction between Sam and Axel would stay the same. And meanwhile in the States, Amanda would still try to convince Kenny to go to Barcelona, but Kenny still wouldn't want to go, and Kenny would still think that Anthony put laxatives in his water. Eventually Anthony would apologize to Kenny, and Devin would confess to Kenny that it was her that put laxatives in his water, so Kenny would decide to go. Eventually Miguel, Johnny, and Kenny would come back to Barcelona, and Kenny would still take Devin's place. Miyagi-Do would still fight Furia de Pantera. Dimitri would still start off, and he still wouldn't be doing so well. So in this timeline, Dimitri would tag in Hawk. Hawk would continue the fight, and he would get a point. and Hawk would tag in Sam. Sam would continue fighting, and she would still get a point. Miguel would finish the fight, and in this timeline, Miyamoto would beat Furia de Pantera. And during the next team match, Miyamoto would fight Redentores, and Miguel would still start off. He would use a combination of offense and defense, and he would tag in Robbie, and Robbie would land the first point. Robbie would tag in Kenny, and much like in the original timeline, Kenny would get 2 points, and they would still advance in their matches. Miyamoto would still fight Cobra Kai, and Robbie and Tori would still start off. Robbie would still be distracted, and he would still tag in Sam. Sam and Tori would fight, but Tori would tag in Quan, and he would manage to land a point on Sam. Quan would still tag out, and Sam would tag in Miguel, and he would get the first point. Yoon and Dimitri would continue the fight, and much like in the original timeline, Hawk, Kenny, and Dimitri would team up to get the point on Yoon, and Hawk would once again tag in Miguel. Miguel and Quan would fight, but Quan would manage to land a point on Miguel, so Miguel would tag in Robbie. Robbie and Quan would fight, and that fight would stay the same. Robbie would land the final point on Quan, so Miyamoto would beat Cobra Kai in this timeline. Tiger Strike would still be eliminated for cheating during the tournament, so Furia de Pantera would take their place. The semi-finals would begin. Quan and Diego would still fight, but Quan would still defeat him. Zara and Maria would fight, but Zara would still defeat Maria. Axel would still fight Robbie in the semi-finals, and that fight would stay the same. Axel would still knock Robbie back, and Quan would still hit Robbie. Miguel would still be mad, and he would go confront Quan, but Axel would knock Miguel back, so Miguel and Axel would want to fight. Gunther would see that the Sekai Taikai was getting out of hand, and he would want everyone off the mats, but this is when Sensei Ivanov would knock Gunther out, and the brawl would still happen. Miguel would be angry, and he would fight Axel, but Axel would be able to knock Miguel back. Miguel would try using his defense, but Axel would get through it. The brawl would continue, and the season was still in the same way. Quan would still want to stab Axel, but Axel would sweep Quan's leg, and Quan would still land on the knife, so Quan would still be stabbed in this timeline, and everyone would be shocked. And that is where I'm gonna end this what if. Thank you guys for watching. What do you guys think would have happened if Hockey was focused during the events of Cobra Kai Season 6? Let me know in the comments below. YouTube lets me know that the majority of you are not subscribed, so if you guys could subscribe, that would be much appreciated. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. And I'll see you guys next time.